Today on the LA Food Podcast, I'm your host Lucas Servodio, stunned by the James Beard Awards' glaring omission in leaving us, the LA Food Podcast, out of its 2024 Media Award nominees. Who knew that Fantasy Top Chef wasn't considered groundbreaking journalism? Speaking of groundbreaking journalism, on today's podcast, we do give flowers to the very deserving LA-based journalists and writers who did score James Beard nominations, including a former LA Food podcast who did some excellent reporting on conchas. We also talk about what we learned from a New Yorker deep dive on the Wild West, that is restaurant reservations, why Angelenos are flocking to 2 new bakeries that opened this week, and the 4 pizzas that stole the show at this weekend's Pizza City Fest. Our interview today is one for the ages, dear listener. We're joined by Chef Jonathan Harris of Linden, a relatively new concept that opened in Hollywood last summer. Chef Jonathan is about as New York as it gets, and he had one hell of an upbringing, eating all kinds of foods and working in his father's acclaimed Long Island restaurant, Cornbread and Caviar. He talks to us about his journey and how his unique path influenced the frankly mind-bending menu you can find at Linden. We also talk about his time operating a 26-seat tasting menu concept out of his apartment and broader topics like the role black chefs and foodways have played in shaping American cuisine writ large. Did I mention he's also hilarious? I think you're going to like this one, dear listener, so without further ado, let's chow down. The LA Food Podcast is brought to you by House of Macadamias. Dear listener, do you have a favorite nut? Here's why I've happily given that title over to the macadamia. First, it's chock full of nutritional benefits, including one of the best omega 6-to-3 ratios in the nut game, 8 times better than pistachios and 20 times better than cashews. Cashew? More like cash-ew. Second, it's super versatile. You can have them as a snack. You can find tons of applications to include them in your cooking. You can even use the oil for cooking, in addition to using it for skin and health purposes. If you want to get in on the macadamia game, head to the LA Food Pod page on houseofmacadamias.com to access my curated list of macadamia products. We've got extra virgin cold-pressed macadamia oil, savory macadamia snack packs, and salted or unsalted macadamia nut butter. All great for snacking, all great for cooking. The best part is, when you buy an LA Food Pod bundle on houseofmacadamias.com, you'll instantly get a free multi-pack of macadamia snack bars featuring flavors like chocolate, white chocolate, and coconut white chocolate. And if you subscribe to our bundle, you get a 15% discount on all of it. And don't worry, you can pause, cancel, or adjust the subscription at any time. So what are you waiting for? Head to www.houseofmacadamias.com/pages/LA-foods and go nuts. Dear listener, we've got a hell of an episode for you today. We are joined by a chef from what I think is one of Los Angeles' most underrated fine dining restaurants right now. I'm talking about Linden in Hollywood. You're going to hear a lot more about it today. But in the meantime, I want to tell you about a few things that caught my eye. First of all, the James Beard Awards announced the 2024 nominees for its media awards, and Los Angeles had some notable inclusions. First and foremost, I want to give a massive shout out to friend of the pod, Gab Chabran at LAist. He's the food editor. He has been a guest on this podcast. In fact, I will even put a link in the show notes to the episode that he appeared on. He was nominated for Best Audio Reporting alongside Brian De Los Santos for an episode of LAist's How to LA podcast, in which the duo went around the city searching for the perfect concha. Now, dear listener, if you've never had a concha before, I think it's one of my favorite things in the entire pastry canon of anywhere in the world. I, first had it when I went to Mexico City many, many years ago, but it's basically like this little pan dulce that's super light and airy when done well. And it's got this like sugar crust on the top, sort of like a pineapple bun in Taiwanese cuisine, if you ever had one of those. But I just absolutely cannot get enough of conchas. You take one, you dip it in coffee. Unfortunately, I have not found excellent ones in Los Angeles. So I was absolutely stoked when I saw that Gab and Brian had embarked on this journey to find the concha. And I'm really stoked to see it getting recognition in the James Beard Awards. I think it's really cool, not just because they're showcasing pastry that a lot of people don't think about on a day-to-day basis, definitely on a national level, little less in Los Angeles where we have such a big Mexican and Mexican-American community, but really cool to see the concha getting some recognition on a national level. Gab and Brian also do a great job in that podcast of showcasing some really I'd say small businesses, micro businesses, even brought to us by folks from, yes, immigrant communities, but also indigenous backgrounds as well. So really cool showcasing on their part, and I'm really glad to see that they got a nomination. I will say I'm always a little hesitant to direct y'all to another podcast, but the cool thing about How to LA is it's not exclusively a food podcast. It's actually a podcast that has to do with how to enjoy LA in general, right? So by all means, go listen to How to LA, go subscribe, and congrats to Gab and Brian for their nomination. Another nomination was to Daniel Hernandez, the food editor of the LA Times. He was nominated in the dining and travel category of the Journalism Awards for a 3-part series he did last year on Mexico City. My favorite piece of the bunch was one that was called, "Is Mexico City Getting Too Cool for Its Own Good? I Returned to Find Out." I being Daniel, not me. This one was really kind of almost like a personal essay in which he reflected back on a time in his life when he went to go live in Mexico City as a Mexican American. And it was a really sort of touching, vulnerable, open piece about his life. And I love this because Daniel is a really great writer, a really great person, but he's someone that operates, I think, a lot of the times behind the scenes, right? We're not often getting writing from him. He's often the person pulling the strings behind the LA Times' food coverage in general. So it was really cool to see his voice showcased, and it was done in an absolutely fantastic manner. And basically the story traces Mexico City, but it also sort of looks at like the evolution of Mexico City over the last couple decades, especially as like it's become increasingly a very attractive tourist destination for Americans, and sort of how that's played a part in changing the face of the city. Great piece. I'll also link it in the show notes. He had a couple of guides in that 3-part series as well. One was on the best tacos, carnitas, pulque, and classic restaurants in Mexico City. And the other one was on general tips for traveling to Mexico City, like what to tip and what to avoid. In terms of like his list of restaurants, it was a pretty good list. I have no qualms with it. I actually think the New York Times put out a better where to eat list. And we've talked about it ad nauseum on this podcast. But basically, the New York Times list was next level. It was done by bringing in a committee of people that are in Mexico City, chefs, journalists who could speak to sort of like, yes, the historic places, but also the modern places as well. So I gotta say, list for list, I think that edges out Daniel's list. But overall, I can definitely see why Daniel is getting the recognition, and I think he deserves it. Congrats to him. A couple other LA-related things that were nominated. One, LA-based author Noah Galuten was nominated in the home cooking category for an Eater article he published on the perils of store-bought broths and stocks. Very interesting. We'll also post it in the show notes. And then Vice's Munchies was nominated for Best Unscripted Program thanks to a video they produced on the family behind Ray's Barbecue, a Los Angeles barbecue institution. And so be sure to check that out also. Congrats to everyone who was nominated. I will say, I think there was one notable miss, and that is in the books section, the liquor and spirit related books. I think friend of the pod, Paul Feinstein's Italy Cocktails book should have scored a nomination. Honestly, if you flip through that book, you learn so much about what I think is one of the most essential cocktail schools in the game today. And what you don't realize is actually it's a relatively new school of cocktail making that has been largely unexplored in the depth at which Paul explored it. So I think that book was a little slept on. I'm hoping maybe it just didn't come out in time and he can be considered for next year's awards, because it did come out a little later in the year. But if it was missed, then it was definitely slept on. Anyways, and obviously the other notable miss from the James Beard Awards was they forgot to nominate the LA Food Podcast. But you know what? We can't all be right 100% of the time. So James Beard Awards, we'll forgive you this time. I will say we give the James Beard Awards quite a bit of shit on this podcast. So we're not expecting a nomination anytime soon. On to the next story. Another story that made a lot of noise when it came out a few days ago was the New Yorker's Adam Isko published an article on restaurant reservations. This was something that I saw shared a lot on social media. And when I first saw it, I was like, okay, well, we've seen a lot of stories about this topic, and we've talked about it on the podcast before, basically how the advent of all these reservation platforms like Open Table and Resi and now 7 Rooms is changing the restaurant game, how people are getting involved and actually starting these like secondary markets where they're snagging up reservations and selling them online at a premium. So I thought, what am I really going to learn in this piece that is new? But actually reading it, a couple things stood out to me. First, I didn't really realize just how insane that reseller market was getting. Like, there's a site called Appointment Trader, which I've never heard of, but I'm definitely going to go check out after I am done recording this podcast. People are making tons of money reselling reservations. There's an anecdote in the story about a dude who's making $70K a year selling reservations. Basically just opens his laptop at like 10 a.m. in the morning, snags up a bunch of reservations at hot restaurants in New York City and beyond, and resells them for like $800 to $1,200 a pop. And he's making, pretty good money a year through this side gig. To me, part of this is kind of like to be expected, right? It seems like a bit of a horrible but logical conclusion of the fact that we, especially we as like people who like food, are all into the shiny things. It's kind of the natural progression of things when we all get so excited about a buzzy new restaurant. We see celebrities start to flock there. We hear a bunch of hype and we ourselves want to go experience it. I think part of it is on us as diners to be a little smarter about this, right? Like if we can't get a reservation at Funky, maybe don't freak out about it and drop $800 on one of these reseller platforms to snag that reservation. Maybe just go check out a place that has a slightly easier reservation to snag, but is still good. Like, for example, if you can't go get a reservation at Funky, why not go to a reservation like Spice Table, right? Which has been around for about a decade, but is still doing exciting things. Chef Brian over there just debuted a new menu not too long ago, which really shows off his Singaporean roots. And it's exciting food, but the fact that it's not like a shiny new restaurant kind of makes people not want to go as much. Well, you as a diner, be smarter, right? Fuck Funky, go to Spice Table. I don't actually mean fuck Funky, like nothing against Funky. What I mean is just like, let's look at the restaurants that are getting a little less shine, and maybe let's use this as an opportunity to give them a little bit more attention. But the second piece that really stuck out to me about this entire piece was that one of the things that restaurants are really doing with these apps is they're using it to collect data on diners. For example, if you go out to dinner and you only order a soup and you sit around for a very long time, you refuse to turn the table, maybe you're rude to staff, maybe you go to the bathroom and you leave a mess or something like that, restaurants are able to somehow log this in the app and track it to your reservation so that next time you visit, you might have a little tag on your profile that says, this guy kind of sucks, don't serve him as well, basically. On the flip side, if you're a really good diner and you go somewhere and you spend a ton of money, maybe you're really nice to staff, maybe you left a really generous tip, maybe you ordered a really nice bottle of wine, they can leave a little demarcation on your profile that says, hey, this guy, he's soigné, he's got swag, he's a baller, let's treat him nice next time, and he will compensate us accordingly, probably, right? I'm a fan of this. I'm a fan of this because as we've talked about in the past, restaurants are extremely small margin businesses. And I think that kind of like in sports where marginal gains really matter. And if you can do anything to gain a little bit of an advantage on the competition, you're going to do it. I think this is great because it gives restaurants a little bit more data that maybe won't make a huge difference in their overall margins, but in a small margin business, even the smallest adjustment can make a big difference. So I'm all for that. I also think this is kind of cool because it means you as a diner now have the onus to be a better person, right? I think it's kind of cool for us as diners to think about, hey, how am I behaving when I go out to a restaurant? What am I doing to give back to this experience that has been so carefully manicured and orchestrated for me, right? Like I want to make sure I'm being nice to staff. I want to make sure that I'm ordering things off the menu that maybe the staff has recommended and therefore it shows that I am trusting them. I want to basically just be my best self here. And I know that seems like a small ask, but I think you'd be surprised how many people go out to dinner and treat it as a me experience. I think it's a much more fruitful experience when you're able to treat it as a two-way street. In fact, one of the best meals I've had in the last year was an experience I had going to Queen Street, the restaurant from the Found Oyster people. I had been there before and I had had a so-so experience. I went for dinner with my wife and a friend and it was fine. Like we had fine food. But I think that the reason that wasn't such a good and fruitful experience was because I wasn't really committed to having a good experience. What I mean is we were there to catch up with our friend. We were kind of just ordering stuff, whatever. I don't remember engaging with the server that much. But on our second visit, we had been fresh off several drinks at Highland Park Bowl and Capri Club. So we were in a chatty Cathy mood when we got to the restaurant, and it led us to really engaging with the server and really diving deep, asking questions about the menu, ordering things outside of our comfort zone, ordering pretty generously, I may say also, which I'm sure helped the server like us even more. But it was just such an amazing experience because we were all in. We were bought in. We were listening to the story of the restaurant. We were listening to the story of the dishes. We put the effort in, right? They gave it back to us. They treated us special. I'm pretty sure they comped a couple things on the bill. A great incentive as restaurants get more data for us to be aware as diners. Hey, they're keeping track of us, so let's put our best foot forward, right? The other interesting thing the piece brought up is right now, the data collecting is limited to singular restaurants. However, they are exploring features where restaurants may be able to share the data with other restaurants. I think they're only talking about it within the context of hospitality groups that have numerous restaurants. But how cool would it be, I think, if they were able to share the data beyond restaurants, like across restaurants of all ilks, right? And then you as a diner got like a rating, like a 4.88, which I think is what my Uber rating is. I have no idea why it's not a 5, but it's not. Maybe I slammed the door once by accident. I'm sorry to that Uber driver. But, if you as a diner know your rating too, I think that can help us all be better people. It can help the restaurants. I'm for it. I think the argument against it is it feels a little Orwellian to some. They might think like, okay, well, I don't really like that the restaurant is able to collect data on me, is able to keep tabs on me. But guess what, guys? In this day and age, we all carry a phone in our pockets, and that thing is listening to us like nobody's business. I've got an Alexa in my house right now, and she just heard me say that word and just lit up like a Christmas tree, okay? So we are being listened to no matter what. Let's give these restaurants the data. Let's help them make better margins. Let's help them make better profits. And let's be better people. I'm all for it. Next up, I wanted to quickly talk about the fact that there are 2 new bakeries that opened in Los Angeles and they've caused quite a stir. One is in West Los Angeles. It's called Petit Grain Boulangerie. As you can see from my accent, I was born in Paris and therefore I have a flawless French accent. The other one is in Highland Park. It's called The Fonderie, and it's brought to us by the same people who run loquat and kumquat coffee shops, very good coffee shops. But the kind of nuts thing is that these bakeries have massive lines outside of them. Like I was just walking by the Fonderie the other day and I saw the line curling around the block. I posted it on my social media. You may have seen it actually. And then I asked somebody who was coming away from the bakery, how long did you wait? And they said, I was there 75 minutes to pick up a pastry. And apparently there's similar lines happening at over at Petit Grain Boulangerie on the west side. I just kind of can't believe that that is something that is happening. And it made me think of a theory that friend of the pod, Paul Feinstein, once told me. His theory was that there are no good croissants in Los Angeles. None. That Los Angeles doesn't know how to make croissants. Even the best bakeries, think of the best bakeries, even like Republique, right? Republique can make a decent croissant, but besides that, there's really not much out there. And I'm starting to think maybe he was onto something, because why else would people wait 75 minutes in line for baked goods? It must be because there is a lack of other excellent options, and they're hoping that these are excellent options. To me, that seems to be one explanation. I will say I'm going to go check out Fondry one day soon, and I'll report back on whether it's worth the wait. But until then, we can only watch social media and wonder. The final thing I want to talk about before we move on to our interview with Chef Jonathan Harris, I wanted to quickly touch on Pizza City Fest, which was amazing. Congratulations to Steve Dolinsky, Carol Chin, all of the organizers at LA Live. I truly think it's one of the most incredible food festivals that we have here in Los Angeles. In fact, I was there with my wife, and she was there to support me for the panel that I moderated on the Sunday, which went very well. Thank you for asking, dear listener. But she was there, and she was just like, wow, this thing is like really big. There's like thousands of people. It's like a massive event. Tons of like amazing pizzerias serving incredible slices of pizza. The audience is also very diverse. It skews actually a little on the younger side. It's a very vibrant event. She was like, you got asked to speak at this? Are they sure? Do they know what they're doing? No, she didn't quite say that, but there was a little bit of the sort of like surprised energy there. And yeah, this is an incredible food festival. I highly recommend going next year, but I wanted to quickly tell you about 4 pizzas that stole the show, in my opinion. And it's not just my opinion. I made this list based on the sort of inputs I was gathering from everybody I was speaking to at the festival. So here are 4, right? 1, Hot Tongue Pizzeria in Silver Lake. Okay, Frogtown, Silver Lake. I've actually been on their podcast, and we did like a cross podcast episode, but I promise you this is in no way podcast favoritism. Alex Coons is making some incredible pizza over there. He didn't even serve his regular like New York-ish style slice. He served these like grandma slices that were like thick focaccia, but they were so light, they were so airy, so bubbly. Absolutely delicious, complex dough flavor with nothing but very good quality tomato sauce on top. Just an incredible, simple, amazing, well-executed slice of pizza. I was pretty much floored. I think that may have been my favorite bite of the weekend personally, but even for a lot of people whose it wasn't their favorite, they all said it was among their favorites. So congrats to Alex and the team. Amazing stuff. Go check out Hot Tongue. Secondly, Secret Pizza. You've heard about them, I'm sure. Bill Addison has included them on lists of the best pizza in Los Angeles. I've also included them in lists of the best pizza in Los Angeles. The thing is, I hadn't had their pizza in like 2 years or 3 years maybe. I went back when they were still serving it out of their apartment in Hollywood, and they were bringing out these pizzas out of their home oven, and they had nailed already the recipe, I think, and were serving what was some of the best New York style pizza I had ever had in Los Angeles. They've since moved to a permanent location in El Sereno, I want to say, and they're using professional grade ovens, and the pizza they're making now is next level, even better than I remembered it. It ate so light. It ate almost like a Roman style pizza. And if you know that, that's like a cold ferment, long ferment. It leaves this super light but still bubbly crust on the inside. And imagine that, but with like New York topping flavors. Sensational. I can't wait to go get another slice. 3, third pizza that knocked my socks off. I've seen them on Instagram forever. I've never had them before, but Speak Cheesy down in Long Beach, they're making these sourdough wood-fired pies. Their dough is spectacular. The pizza they served here was actually a take on a New York pizza called Ruby Rosa, where they're famous for doing a tie-dye number, which has vodka sauce on the base and like a drizzle of pesto on top. I had Ruby Rosa actually a couple weeks ago when I was in New York, and I did not like it at all. I liked the toppings, but I just didn't like the dough, the crust. They basically roll it out paper thin, and it eats like a cracker. But Speak Cheesy's incredible dough, and it brought those flavors to the table. I absolutely loved it. Can't wait to get down to Long Beach to have more of their pizza. But I think the pizza that won the weekend, this isn't my opinion. This is literally just the opinion of everybody I spoke to. The number one pizza that was on everybody's lips was Truly Pizza in Dana Point. They served this like focaccia-esque slice, basically, which was somewhere between like a Sicilian and a Detroit style. It looked, and then I'm quoting the organizer, Steve Dolinsky, when I say this, because this is the way he described it, and I think he hit the nail on the head. He said, it looks like a brick, it eats like a feather. Guys, this pizza was so light, it almost floated off my plate. I'm not kidding. The toppings were really beautiful. It had some like pesto, burrata type thing going on. I think they put flowers on it too, which, take it or leave it. But flavor-wise, it was on point, made me want to drive down to Dana Point ASAP and check out more of their offerings. I highly, highly recommend checking them out next time you're driving down the coast. But seriously, next year, mark whatever date in April it's going to be on your calendar. Make sure to get to Pizza City Fest. Incredible event. Okay, last thing I want to plug before we move on to our interview with Jonathan Harris. Father Saul and I actually had the great pleasure of joining another podcast this week, and that is the Compliments to the Chef pod. They are a Top Chef companion pod hosted by Nancy and Bits over in New York. It's an incredible podcast. They've been going for, I want to say, 2 or 3 months. They have it nailed down to a science. They're so entertaining. They're so funny. They've been doing episode by episode recaps in addition to interviews with people in the Top Chef universe. And it's a super high quality podcast. They are excellent hosts. They had us on to recap the latest episodes, which was actually ironic because the episode was all about sausages. So it was a sausage party all around, honestly, this episode. Yes, the episode is very specific to recapping the Top Chef episode, but I think it's entertaining in general because we do talk about the countdown, we talk about the podcast, we talk a little bit about Top Chef lore in general. So I think it's funny regardless of whether you watch the show or not. So I'll put that in the show notes as well. Please go check it out. They're actually going to be on this podcast next week because we're going to be doing a mid-season recap to look back at how season 21 of Top Chef has gone so far and our predictions for the rest of the season. Okay, that'll probably do for today. I've spoken a bunch, way longer than I intended to, but thank you for listening if you are still listening. And without further ado, here's Chef Jonathan Harris. Dear listener, my wife recently decided to start eating meat after more than 15 years of being a vegetarian, and being the conscientious consumer that I am, I've been looking for ways to make our household's meat consumption as high quality and sustainable as possible. That's why I'm absolutely thrilled to have found First Light Farms, a small collective of passionate family farmers in New Zealand who are quietly changing the world. Not only are they producing the most tender, rich, and succulent Wagyu beef money can buy, but you can rest assured that First Light's cattle were raised as nature intended, living it up on lush pasture, eating a 100% grass diet with absolutely no grains, no animal byproducts, and no feedlots. The result is the best tasting meat in the game, full of natural marbling and packed with omega-3 fats. If you've ever enjoyed a meal at Ma2 in Beverly Hills, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Ma2 famously sources all of its meat directly from First Light, and the good news is that you too can have First Light Farms meats delivered straight to your door. All you have to do is visit www.firstlight.farm, where you can buy their meats and also sign up for their members-only steak club. Members of the steak club enjoy tons of benefits, including monthly shipments of steaks, access to the highest marble score meats, and, this is my favorite part, access to First Light's full library of proprietary recipes and techniques. Also, you can cook the perfect steak within the comfort of your own home. Buying good steak isn't easy and it isn't cheap. First Light delivers the highest quality at an incredible deal, and now that I've seen the light, I'm never going back. Visit www.firstlight.farm to learn more and use the code LAFood10 for a 10% discount on your first order. It's my pleasure to welcome to the LA Food Podcast today, Chef Jonathan Harris, the chef of Linden, the Sunset Boulevard hotspot that bills itself as a celebration of New York City's rich tapestry of cultures, flavors, and stories. Chef Jonathan, how you doing today?
Can't complain, man. The weather's nice, so I can't complain.
We're finally done with these rainstorms. Can you believe it?
Yeah, it's been raining for like a year now, I feel like. It's been raining since last year.
You come out to Los Angeles from the East Coast, and all of a sudden you start to feel like you're back on the East Coast a little bit, huh?
Yeah, no, I don't have to buy a coat, so it's all right. Just an umbrella.
Yeah, there you go. Where are you calling us from today?
I'm actually calling from downtown LA, so if you hear some sirens and a bit of noise, it's not entirely my fault.
Not entirely the key word. What's is that where your regular stomping grounds when you're not at the restaurant?
Normally, yeah, I try to just stay places where I could just walk to the store. So I moved downtown based off of the fact that it was the closest I felt, at least I thought, to New York when I got here.
Yeah, you wanted that walkability.
Yeah, I wanted to be able to go to the store and get something to drink. That's it.
Yeah. You say, you thought it was the closest you could get to New York. What do you think about it now?
Nah, it's not like New York at all. It's like a movie.
It's like a movie. It's like the movie set of New York.
Yeah, yeah. It's like a movie set in New York, and there's like people who make it seem like the movie is an ongoing movie at all times. I'm an extra in their movie down here.
It's funny, I was actually at the Whole Foods on 7th, like, so in downtown, and I was, just buying some produce down there, and all of a sudden, there's this, like, lady who's all made up in this blue dress who, like, stops traffic in front of the avocados because she's doing, like, a photo shoot in there, like, unannounced. I'm assuming that's the kinda thing you're talking about.
Yeah, that's normal. Yep. But that's the normal people downtown. That's the crazy part.
That's the normal. Yeah, you're the weird one for just going to Whole Foods and wanting to buy an avocado like a regular person.
100%. I'm not recording my experience at Whole Foods.
Yeah, not at all times. So, listener, in case you haven't gathered it so far, Chef Jonathan is from New York, but you're not just from any part of New York. You're from Long Island. Is that right?
Yeah, from Long Island, Roosevelt, Long Island.
Roosevelt, Long Island. Now, for those of us, who aren't from New York, we hear New York, we hear Long Island, we just assume it's like, being from West Hollywood versus Santa Monica. What does it mean to be from Long Island versus from other parts of New York?
I mean, Long Island, a lot of times, especially for the city dwellers, they're like, "Oh, you live in Long Island? Oh, okay." But I mean, growing up, it was interesting. Being from Roosevelt, especially, is interesting. It was a 90% African American town in Long Island, so it's like growing up, you kind of got the same thing everywhere you went. But with my family being from Brooklyn, being from the Bronx, being from different Caribbean islands, we spent a lot of time in Brooklyn. So it's just like that travel from Long Island to Brooklyn was interesting because you passed a lot of communities on the way there.
So, what were you like as a kid? What was young Jonathan like? What were your hobbies? What were the kinds of things you were into?
Uh, as a kid, I thought I wanted to be a veterinarian.
No way.
I liked animals a lot, I like dogs, and I thought I wanted to be a veterinarian. But now, instead of helping animals, I feed people animals. But it's cool though. I'm alright with it. But growing up, I was really into sports. I played football. I got a scholarship to play football. But then I also, on the other end of that, I worked as a kid since I was 6 years old. I'm a
Mhm.
third generation chef. So my grandfather was a chef, my father was a chef, and he had a restaurant when I was a kid, and so I had a restaurant when I was a kid.
Yeah. So if I'm not mistaken, that restaurant was called Cornbread and Caviar. Tell us about it. What was it like?
Yeah, cornbread and caviar. So my father, was a French trained chef, went to French Culinary Institute. He worked for a couple French chefs in Manhattan, and he took those different types of techniques from working with French chefs and having a background. Because his mother's from Durham, North Carolina, and his father's from Barbuda. And having that kind of culture clash in there, he took those things he grew up with and used those same techniques to create this restaurant. So the basis of even my cooking is high lows, which is undersell and over deliver. So cornbread and caviar had things like a macaroni and cheese souffle. They had catfish pinwheels, like fried catfish pinwheels with palm purees. And this is in '96. So for me, it was a not big, major part of me actually honing in on what my food style is.
That sounds pretty avant-garde for the 90s. Am I right?
Yeah, it is. It was wild. I have a couple of dishes on my menu inspired from cornbread and caviar, but one in particular is a crispy peach. My father had it on his menu. It was called Injuri's Purse at the time. It was one of his partner's daughter's name, and right now that dessert still hits, that was over 20 years ago. from when I learned it. It was over 20 years ago, and that dish still his. So yeah, he was doing a lot of things before his time that I kind of still kind of use a little bit now.
That is really cool. Now, when you said you were, in the restaurant as a kid, was that like you were happy to do that, or was that kind of like your equivalent of chores?
Yep, chores. Wasn't happy to do it. Started playing football because of that, actually. So the reason why we got into football, I have an older brother. I'm the youngest of three, and he's the middle child. He was like, "Yo, listen, if we go start playing sports, we don't have to come here after school." So I'm like, "All right, cool, let's go do it. Go sign up, get permission, get everything signed off, and tell my father, yeah, man, we got sports now. Can't really come in, kind of busy." I said, all right, after practice, come on in. Close at 10. Practice is over at 5. Didn't matter. Right after practice, go. So now I got school, sports, and still have to go to work.
And you're like physically demolished from football practice and you have to go to work.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. But as a kid, you don't realize you're tired. You're not tired. You just know that you're not doing something that you want to do.
yeah.
But I was responsible for the cornbread in the restaurant. I used to have to make, I mean, not every day, but like probably Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I would be out there making the cornbread, 7 sheet trays every night.
Wow, so they were not giving you like, the least prominent jobs. You literally were making the cornbread in this restaurant.
Yeah, they thought it was. They thought I thought it was fun, but it wasn't. But I mean, I learned a thing or two though. And then from there, once I got a little older, they allowed me to go out in the front, and I was working as a busboy,
Mm, mm.
doing all the side work for the servers, front of the house, and then started as a busboy, then moved on to a waiter, and then I realized, I'd rather go back there.
Yeah, the waiter life was not for you, and you're like, I'd rather be in the kitchen.
Yeah, I just felt like you eat more in the kitchen. I don't want. I just wanted the food. If I'm gonna be here, at least I'm not gonna be hungry.
Yeah, that's smart. So did you enjoy the act of cooking eventually? Like, when did you first start to realize, like, oh, this is actually something I could get into?
It was senior year of high school. Senior year of high school, I got a scholarship, went to go play football, and I also secretly signed up to go to Johnson and Wells. Like I filled out an application to go to Johnson and Wells. I was like, man, if this football thing don't work, I could probably cook or something, but I just gotta get out of here though.
Mm.
I gotta go. And I ended up going away to school, play football. I got hurt, and I just felt like I was there for the wrong reason. So I came back home, went to work at my father's restaurant, and it was one particular Sunday I was there, and there was this pastor used to come in there all the time. I don't know if you're familiar with the old Steve Harvey suits, but this guy used to wear the Steve Harvey suits. I just remember it vividly.
Hmm.
And I'm working in the front because it was a little short-handed, so I'm taking orders, and if I need to go in the back, I go in the back. And I was taking his order. He was just like, "Hey, is there any way you could make the food today?" I'm like, what? He's like, "Yeah, no, I just, if your dad doesn't mind, I'd love for you to do it." I'm like, "Man, you've been seeing me since I was a kid, man. You know I don't want to be here right now. But, I'm going to do what my father want me to do. I'll go back there, I'll make his food." He comes back the next Sunday and asks the same thing. "Yo, can you make my food?" So I'm like, now you're just picking on me. Now I'm very reluctant to do this, but I got to do whatever you ask me to do, so I'll do it. After I gave him the food, I asked him, "Why you keep asking me to make your food?" He was like, "I'm going to be honest with you." I'm like, "Yeah, I want to give your dad a break and put me on for more work."
You're like, that's hilarious.
But at the same time, simultaneously, I realized, like, oh, well, if we're interchangeable, that means I could cook.
Yeah.
If he could take a break and I could fill in, I could cook. And this guy, every Sunday, religiously, he would be there. So with that, I was like, all right, cool. I might be interested in this Johnson& and Wells thing. I'm going to take it serious. And went to play football, didn't work out, came back, and I was still able to redeem that scholarship. So I went. And that's when I really decided, like, all right, I'm going to do this cooking thing. I know what I'm doing already. I just don't know what it's called.
Was your dad supportive of this? Like when you told him, "Hey, Dad, I think I'm going to go be a chef," because you said you applied to Johnson and Wales in secret. Like you didn't tell him about it. Is it because they didn't want you to do it, or is it just because you didn't want anybody to know?
No, they didn't want to push anything specific
Mm.
onto me. like, oh well, you should just go be a chef. Now I was like, well, you do whatever you like to do. And I mean, I never told anyone I wanted to do that because then that would mean more hours at the restaurant.
Smart, smart. But once they knew, they were like all supportive of it.
100%. My father was very supportive of it, but also realizing that he was losing a good set of hands.
Yeah.
All in all, it worked out.
Yeah, clearly. Now, before we move on to the rest of your career, I read that growing up, you experienced a wide variety of food growing up where you grew up. Can you talk us through some of your favorite things that you ate growing up?
Even now, like the menu at Linden reads, it's pretty much my childhood story of the things that I ate. So this is my perspective of a chef's kid and the things that they ate. Like my father was a very picky eater when it came down to like we didn't do too much of the like outside eating. If it was some type of nice restaurant that he would love to go to. It was a restaurant in Long Island. I still think it's there. It's called Tomatoes
Hmm.
and it's been there since the '90s. And that was his spot. He'd go in there, and what it did was show me how I feel a respected chef would be treated. You go into the restaurant, he's with his family, they seat you down, they send out. You don't even see the menu,
Hmm.
they just send out stuff. So it's just like things like that. But growing up there, I mean, I was big on. I'm not gonna lie, you sandwiches. A bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich was one of the best things I ever thought I created. Bacon, egg, and cheese, salt, pepper, ketchup, one word. And you go to the deli and you go get your sandwich. It was cool. And you could also, at the same time, live in Long Island, our delis doubled as restaurants that had buffet style takeout. So you were able to get Dominican food at the same time
Hmm.
as you could get a sandwich. And then with me growing up, my first interaction with even just a different, like a completely different culture
Hmm.
was Jewish culture, Jewish cuisine, I would say, because a lot of our teachers in Long Island were Jewish. So we had teachers like Miss Bezalel, who was one of my favorite teachers till this day. She was the first person that introduced me to challah bread
Hmm.
and made fresh butter in class. Now, I didn't think that was possible. I thought that was just stuff, if you didn't go to some big time restaurant to go get it, you got to get it from the store. But that was one of those things that opened my eyes to like, all right. And educating somebody on something like that who had no idea was also something that made me realize that food is just a story.
Hmm.
And with that, I was working with my father. My father did bar mitzvahs. He did catering as well. So we went to a lot of bar mitzvahs. So I felt like I was special because I knew what was going on at catering at these bar mitzvahs
Hmm.
as a young kid. But major food, like things like that, opened up my eyes to different cultural experience. But I mean, being from New York and even in Long Island, it's basic things like pizza. You got mama pies, grandma pies from Long Island, which is one of the originated places you get grandma pie from is in Long Island. Uh, Chinese food. It's a big thing that I miss living out here in California. New York style Chinese food. I know they say it's like the Olive Garden of Italian food, but it's in New York we love it.
Yeah.
General Tso's chicken, pork fried rice, duck sauce. Out here, it's just it's truly authentic.
So you think what if that's a good restaurant concept right there, a New York style Chinese food restaurant in Los Angeles.
I don't know if they love it too much.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, people, if you talk to people like this, they'll say Chinese food in New York is nasty. It's like, oh wow, okay.
Yeah. Well, the big debate is the pizza here. It's the there you're
It's not a debate.
okay. It's not a debate at all. You're like it's not even close here.
No. Why would we even say that?
I mean, look, hey, I don't shoot the messenger, I'm just saying. A lot of people are like New York is obviously like a pizza stalwart, but Los Angeles we're having a pizza renaissance here. So, where there's a lot of places that are saying they're doing the New York style too. Have you had any good ones out here?
Yeah, they're good. And you know what they do? They fly their water from New York. That's why they're good. It's nothing personal. There's bagels, there's pizza, there's Caribbean food, there's things that that are kind of staples in New York. It's cool, to have those kind of options here, but let's not compete. That's not a competition.
I'm all for not competing. I was just listening to a podcast that was saying like, oh, New York, the New York LA competition, it's over. New York won. I think it all depends on what we're talking about. For example, I've heard the Mexican food in New York
Absolutely
not
not.
as good as we have it here.
Absolutely not. That is a true fact. Anyone who
Yeah.
wants to argue
So
that is, whatever. That's a personal thing, but it's not. How can you compete with a place that's named Los Angeles? They're gonna have better tacos than you in New York.
yeah.
It's okay.
We were literally a part of Mexico a century ago or something like that. So you know what? Leave that competition aside. Well, look, we don't need to talk about competition too much, and we can agree to disagree on the state of Los Angeles pizza, okay? But what I do want to know,
Yeah, nah, I mean, I eat pizza out here. Joe's Pizza is cool too. Shout out to Joe's Pizza. It's a New York staple now when in LA, so it's cool.
yeah, yeah, it's all love, and I love New York pizza too. So it's not. I'm a big pizza head, so I've done my research here.
You're gonna have to put me on, man. You have to tell me some spots that you think are you put your name on.
Well, you know what? You know what the thing is? I feel like, and you talked about this right now with the grandma style and the auntie style and all that stuff, the mom style pizza in New Jersey. Like here, I feel like what LA does really well is we have a bunch of different styles of pizza. Like we have, a good Detroit style place. We have lots of good wood fired pies. We've got good sourdough pies. So it's just I feel like there's a wide range of pies represented here, but yeah, some things you can't replicate. Yeah, you can't replicate the water. We got to work with what we have.
Yeah, and it's just that's why. I mean, there probably are now. I haven't lived in New York in a while, but there probably are some couple good taco places. But come on,
Speaking of, the evolution of our personal taste, I want to hear about what it was like for you coming out of culinary school and starting to work in restaurants that weren't cornbread and caviar. What were those experiences like?
it was difficult because I've only had prior to going away, going to New England. I only had one other job, not working for my father. And it's difficult to come from a family
Hmm.
business where it's understood what's understood doesn't have to be said. So it's more so like I would give my all because that's what I'm used to doing, and I think that worked out a lot of times for me working in
Hmm.
restaurants at different places because it was just like that's all I know. I don't know. I mean, you got to tell me to take a break. It's just like for the greater good. That's what I'm with. So a lot of the places that I worked, I was a guy willing to do what somebody else wasn't willing to do because it just had to be done. So I mean, working in restaurants there, it was. I will have to say, I didn't. I staged at this restaurant. I didn't work there, but this restaurant, till this day, I can't even explain to you how much I appreciate it. Like, it's called Nick's on Broadway. It's in Providence, Rhode Island. Have you seen Ratatouille?
Of course.
All right. You remember when he gave his? I don't remember the name, but he gave his boy. They were breaking into the house, or whatever. He gave his boy a chanterelle mushroom and a grape to eat at the same time.
Uh huh.
And when he did it at the same time, it was like stars and like fireworks going off when he ate it.
Yeah.
I went to Nick's on Broadway for the first time. It was like my second week in Providence. I went there for the first time, and I had a duck breast sandwich with a bacon mayo, home fries, Boston bib lettuce on a house-made sourdough bread. This happened in 2010.
Mm,
I just gave you verbatim what I ate in
wow.
2010. Stars and fireworks went off when I decided to realize that this is amazing. You mean to tell me you didn't buy this bread? No, I made it in house. You mean to tell me you made this mayonnaise? Yeah, I made it in house. You mean to tell me you made this duck, you smoked this duck partially, then cooked it to medium, and then put it on the yeah, no, this is the greatest thing I've ever experienced. And after that, it was just a slippery slope of me trying to get creative with what I already knew to match flavors with things that I was learning.
That's awesome. So Nick's on Broadway, a big inspiration, it sounds like.
100% Chef Derek Wagner.
At what point were you like, I think it would be a good idea to open up a 26-seat supper club in my apartment?
uh, when I couldn't get my friends to cross the bridge from New York.
Mm.
So at that time, I had moved back from Rhode Island and I moved to Jersey to teach culinary classes. And it was cool, it was fun. It was just reason why I don't do it now is hard to teach adults.
Mm.
about things that they think they know, but they already like. But yeah, none of my friends would come visit me. I was living in Jersey, and it's like probably like a 45-minute drive. They wouldn't cross the bridge. So what I
Hmm.
started doing, like, y'all cooked, man. You know, I cooked and made some food. Come on through. You can bring some people too. I'm not even tripping. And what ended up happening was that started to become a thing. One night we did, I think it was quail and something, and it was probably 8 people that were coming by there. We coming through. We're gonna bring some drinks, and we just gonna eat. I'm like, all right, cool. They took a couple pictures. Then people started hitting me up like, yo, when you doing that quail thing again? I don't know, bro. Like next week. So then it rolled into that, and more people who never would come to New Jersey because it's so far across a bridge that takes 5 minutes to cross. But that was the start of it. And from there, just slowly, I started off. I got booth seats built, these seats right here, got them built.
Wow.
And I started putting them in, buying silverware, buying plates. And then because I was teaching class, I had the time to kind of think of new things that I never did. So I would just take ideas that I've been thinking about, put them down, and whoever showed up, showed up. And that's how the apartment started. It's called the apartment.
You called it the apartment.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And what like give me an example of a meal that was served at the supper club.
Oh wow. We did a lot of different things, but one of the things that we did like a watermelon salad with boiled peanuts and a collard green gremolata with that.
Oh wow.
And like a black pepper with feta. That was one thing that we did. We did soft shell crab, curry soft shell crab sandwiches. Uh, we did a five love language dinner where every course represented the five love languages. Did a lamb rib to represent. Uh, we did a bunch. I got them written down, but it was wild. But we were just trying to get creative. And any of my friends who cooked from school that would come into town, I just asked, yo, you want to come cook? And they'll come cook just for fun of it.
Yeah.
Anything that we took in was for donations. So it wasn't like we were trying to break the bank, just wanted to have some fun.
Yeah. So tell me about where you got the inspiration for the dishes at your supper club.
Mostly is probably be behind music and movies and probably
Hmm.
experiences like what I'm passing through. Like at the time I was in Patterson, huge Peruvian population there, Dominican, Puerto Rican, West Indian, and then from there just listen to music, hip hop, R&B mostly, and jazz for the most part. And those things would just trigger a thought in my mind, a moment, or something where I would just create a flavor or a profile that made sense
Can you give me an example of like maybe a tune that inspired some sort of flavor profile?
to me. A lot of Jay-Z songs, but one of the main ones that we did a dinner called In the Walk-In. And for my bread, they want to toast me. And with that, we did. That's what started our breaking bread service at Linden right now. Trying to come up with a bread that made sense that would work out. And before we got to where we are now with our bread service, we were doing challah bread. And that I decided to do a challah bread with a schmaltz whipped butter. And that in particular, that right there was what struck that.
So, well, that's awesome. But we're gonna get into the menu at Linden in just a moment here. But at what point with your supper club, with the apartment, as it was called, did it start being not just your friends coming? Did it ever get to the point where you were like, "Holy shit, people actually want to come eat here"?
Yeah, it did. It got to that point when my father told me about it.
No way.
He was like, "Yeah, I got some friends who want to come by." I'm like, "Come by where? What are you talking about?" And it was one of his old business partners that he worked with at one of the restaurants he had. And that's when I knew that, oh, so people know about this. And I thought it was just more of a word of mouth, friend of a friend thing. But no, I was getting hit up on Instagram from people who had no idea who they were, to the point where everybody that was in there was a stranger. But as they left, we were friends.
How did it progress? At what point were you like, "Okay, it's time to maybe wrap this thing up"?
I'll tell you, it progressed into a lot of those people asking, well, do you do off premise catering? I was like, yeah, that's not a problem. And I was
Mm.
looking for spaces, and I walked into a space out in Patterson because they wanted me to cater their wedding. Because I did their Valentine's Day a year before,
Hmm.
and they wanted me to cater their wedding. So I'm like, all right, cool. Found this place, our art factory, and so happened they were expecting a chef to come in for an interview. And I was just walking around. I had just finished the party. I came in looking like I'm looking for spaces. Like, oh, you're here for the interview. No, I ain't here for the interview. Just looking for spaces. And we had a conversation just like this, just telling him about my past. And I was like, all right, well, can you make something? This is weird, but never going to turn an opportunity to make something. So ended up making they had a steak and I ended up making it like a medium steak. And he's like, all right, well, you're hired. Didn't come there for a job, but that kind of slowed down the apartments and started doing weddings. Started doing between 4 to 7 weddings a weekend based off of not, we didn't have a catalog of menus or anything, no beef, chicken, or fish. We based the menu off of each client's love story. So it was like, that's where like I was getting this creative outlet. The apartment started because I needed some creative to do and I wanted my friends to experience it. And this just got to be too much while I was being way too creative. I needed a break. So when I needed a moment just to rethink, I didn't have time to do the apartment as much. So I went from doing 2 times a week to every other week. Then from every other week to, all right, we're going to do a pop-up once a month. And then because it got so crazy with weddings and it was so intense, yeah, I just had to all together. Just if it's not a pop-up, can't do it. Then COVID hit.
So COVID hits 2020 and you're doing the wedding game, doing the pop-up every once in a while. But I'm assuming at this point, the wedding game
Completely stopped to a complete halt. Complete halt. And it was rough because a lot of people took the time. We created these menus based off. I'm talking 3-hour consultations 3 times just to get the menu right and for it to just be canceled. So a lot of people had to just muster that up and just take it. And I didn't really know what I was going to do. So, I mean, with COVID, it still was a fun thing because it could be more intimate and it didn't have to be a bunch of people. So I started hosting maybe 2 tops, most 6 tops of people who they were. And that was working for a while. But then I realized like, yeah, it's cold out here. It's cold.
is that how you got the inspiration to seek a warmer home?
Yeah, parts of it. Uh, I was never like the largest fan of like coming to California. I had a bad experience as a kid. My uncle used to live in Sacramento. And I came out here, I went by myself, got lost. They had to find me at the airport. And I just was like, yeah. Since a kid, I was like, I don't like California. Had a bad time there. It was terrible. But that was Sacramento, so it was cool.
I was gonna say, I feel like a lot of people would be like, "Yeah, of course you didn't like it. You went to fucking Sacramento."
Yeah, see, I haven't been back since. I
Yeah.
haven't been back since. But it's just like, yeah, coming out to LA, I ended up having a nice connection with someone out here. And I was going back and forth because I had the time. And I ended up meeting this guy who owned, well, not ended up meeting, we rented out a house in the hills somewhere. And I had all my friends come with me. And at the time, it wasn't something I was even too much thinking about. I was trying to refigure out how I was going to do Jersey. I was like, you know what? There's nothing really going on here for me. I'm not going to stay here. And at the time, it was like, all right, COVID's happening. What am I doing here? And it was a lovely girl who made me make that decision. So I came and tried to figure it all out.
There are worse ways to end up in a place than coming out for love. Now, what did you start to do when you figured it out?
I didn't really figure it out. I just,
No.
I kind of pivoted. Like, I just brought the apartment here, just started rebuilding here, just packed up everything from there, tables, chairs. Literally, like I was moving a restaurant. I've closed a couple restaurants in my career where it was just like the time was up, and you're saran wrapping plates together so they don't break. You're putting everything together, and I just got everything over there slowly but surely. Tried to figure out the landscape where I could buy things from. Where do I go to talk to people? And I realized the same thing about the Whole Foods and the people in the middle of the aisle recording things. I realized that's what people like out here. People wanted content. People wanted this, and
Yeah.
it was tough because that's just not one of my biggest strong points. Like I just always, when social media got big with food, I was actually doing food. I was in kitchens with people's phones in their locker. You know, You're not recording and posting. Anybody who was doing that at that time wasn't really doing it. If you're putting out food for 500 people, it's not real. It's not real.
Yeah. You're not making reels of, like, what you're cooking and being like, "Today we're making steak." Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Now, I mean, you see like these chefs who at the time were so against that. Now they had to pick up a phone and get
Yeah.
with it. But that was one of the harder things for me, just keeping up with content and have just that back and forth of just not
Mhm.
being myself. Like to me, myself, I'm very much so in real life person. And then when it comes to the internet, it's like something you're trying to sell.
Mhm.
And it just felt non-organic trying to sell the experience that I offered in New Jersey. But it started picking up, people into it. We did a couple pop-ups. I ended up doing a pop-up on Melrose, which was pretty cool for me. Packed that out. And I was scared people out here thought my food was too heavy.
Hmm.
Everybody always said, in California, they eat healthy, they don't like this, they don't like that. It's not true. It's not true. The line at McDonald's is always long.
It's true. In-N-Out. In-N-Out is, like, the longest line of all time.
It's always long. I don't believe it. It's for optics. The smoothies and stuff is for optics. It's because you ate McDonald's last night.
Exactly, it's 'cause you ate McDonald's last night. The also, I think it's such a small population. It's like, people are like, "Oh, California, it's all about Air One and the Hailey Bieber smoothies." But that's, like, a relatively small portion of the population when you look at what everybody else is eating.
There's a taco truck on every corner. There's someone's eating it.
Yeah. So how did the pop-ups go here? What kind of menus were you serving?
There is again very similar to the Linden menu now. We had an oxtail braised short rib
Mm.
served over rice and pea risotto. We have something similar to that. I had a soft shell crab bucatini pasta. We were serving there. Did cornbread with fried chicken butter. And that was, when was that? That was like maybe a year and a half ago or so. And what's funny about that is initially the person who owned the building or owned the restaurant was just like, yeah, I don't know if this is going to work, but I like, I like you.
Hmm.
He happened to be from New York. He was like, I'll give you a shot. Let's just do it. Packed the place out, and I was ready to get the restaurant.
And so you do these pop-ups, they go well, and you're like, "I'm ready for a restaurant." How does the opportunity to take over, or did you open? How does the Linden opportunity come to you?
Uh, Ended up as crazy. So really, really twisted story. One of the clients that I used to cook for out in Jersey, his cousin introduced me to one of my partners now, who was supposed to be at that pop
Hmm.
up, didn't make it. So a few months later, I ended up doing business with another friend of mine, and we were doing it in another house in the hills. Hills is a lucky place.
Serious.
We were doing a dinner over there, and this guy comes in, and he's just like, "You look like you know what you're doing." I'm like, "Oh, maybe somebody paid me to be here, but nice to meet you." And he's just like, "Nah, it looks like you're really enjoying what you're doing." And I'm like, "All right, well, appreciate it. It's nice to meet you." He's like, "Yeah, no problem. This is my house." Oh, okay. Really nice to meet you. So it ended up, I asked him his name. I'm like, that sounds familiar. Ends up, we got put in a text thread from one of my clients. He's a good friend of mine. I did his wedding. Good friend of mine, not just he's a client of mine as well. A text thread from a year prior that we were having. This is the guy that I'm talking to about food in his house.
Hmm.
And we talked a little more, and he was like, so we were supposed to meet a year ago? I'm like, yeah. He was like, you know what? Do you, what are you doing? And I'm doing this. Is this not good enough for you? He's like, I think I got something for you. And from that conversation, maybe a week later, we went down to this space on 5936 Sunset Boulevard. Happened to be a bar at the time. Uh, Sat down, we spoke, and it was just nothing but ideas running from then. From there, it was history. We're here now.
That's awesome. So really kind of like you were supposed to meet this person at some point, and now
At some point, we know at least 10 to 15 people who are in the same circles, and we just never met until that day. And then it ended up rolling into more partners that I didn't know that I knew in some capacity. And it just, everything about it just seemed right.
Did you have any obviously, you opened what? Was it September of last year? How recently did you open?
We initially opened last year, June, and we did went through the summer, got a lot of notoriety for that, which was crazy. Uh, Things were working out, and we were going with a limited menu. Then it just came about that you know what, place needed a little bit of a facelift and to truly create the identity, and had to close the doors, shut them down, and just really recreate what we were actually looking for. And had nothing to do with decor or anything. The restaurant's beautiful now.
Mhm.
It's amazing. From August to December 31st was back and forth. Just how are we going to do this? How does the customer or how does the guest want to be treated? What is the true intent? What is the story behind this? And no one wanted to do anything for no rhyme or reason. So everything that happens at that restaurant was intended to happen.
Obviously, you've already hinted at this about what the inspiration for the menu is, but what vision were you trying to convey when you talked to this partner about, "Hey, this is what we want to do with this restaurant?"
It's pretty much, I mean, growing up, if anybody from New York, growing up, you have a idea of a lot of different cultures, not only through your surroundings, but through the food. You can go to 4, 5 different Caribbean islands in one block
Mhm.
and taste different food from everywhere. You know, you can go, and it's with it being a common understanding being from New York. You go to Cats, you get a sandwich from Cats in a matzo, half a sandwich in a matzo ball soup. You go get a bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich. These are things that, if you're from New York, everybody's growing up like this. And you have different experiences, but you also have a working knowledge of just cultures.
Mhm.
So talking with all the partners and just having a conversation about where everybody's from, what made sense, it just really just turned into something that all of us kind of, a place that all of us would want to go to.
And so let's talk about the menu specifically, right? I've looked at the menu and it all looks incredible, but there's clearly some dishes where like you can tell that New York inspiration just kind of jumps off the page at you. Talk us through these dishes and where the inspiration was and what they look like today. So let's maybe start with the bread service, which you've already touched on.
So the bread service is legitimately that I start with that, and I like to try to urge people to get that based off of the fact that the bread service is Long Island, and its entirety
Mhm.
New York too. But for me, it's Long Island. Like I don't know, out here people come to a meeting, they bring donuts.
Mhm.
In Long Island, it's a bag of bagels,
Yeah.
butter, cream cheese. So for me, our bread service was my father's restaurant was Cornbread and Caviar. So we have a cornbread, and with Long Island being heavily Jewish Italian kind of culture, I had to give my representation of things that I enjoy. Focaccia bread, and then there's everything bagel. So to go with the focaccia bread, we have olive oil and a balsamic that we have in there with a little bit of crushed red pepper. Then to go with the cornbread, we have a fried chicken butter that's actually molded into a piece of chicken and tossed in fried chicken skins. And then to go everything bagel, we have a byproduct of the matzo ball soup, which is schmaltz, and we take that and emulsify that into a cream cheese. So you can have a schmaltz cream cheese to go with your everything bagel. So it's a representation of a lot of the cultures that influence the food where I was from.
That's awesome. Long Island in a bread basket. So I also want to hear about the salmon roulettes.
Right, Simmer, so that one in particular, I wasn't the biggest lox fan growing up. I was like, that's raw fish, it's crazy. But I got a chance to work in Boston under Chef Kevin Marsland, and got a crash course in just what it was like to make sure that you could get a good cold dish that didn't have to necessarily just be lox.
Mhm.
So the Samoyettes was just my my interpretation with the help of my sous chef, Chef Tyrone. It was our interpretation of what we would like to eat on the line.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like usually that's a Sunday brunch kind of situation that you're putting on a plate, nice cold start. And whenever you're prepping it, you're taking a spoonful and eating it at your station. So that was
Mhm.
another thing that I went to him about and a lot of the cooks in the kitchen, like, all right, well, what do y'all like to eat in your core containers at your station? Because if you miss staff meal, what are you about to eat? And if you're prepping up something, you naturally get, just like even if you're cooking off a steak, there's a steak cut. There's a chef cut after that. I put that steak on there. I'll grill it up to perfection. I'll cut every slice perfectly, but there will be one slice that I just have to make sure is perfect.
Yeah.
So that's where it just came from, the idea of what we like to eat behind the line.
I love that. I love that. All right. This dish I'm particularly excited to hear about. It's called the Parkway.
Parkway. That dish is conceptually probably like 15 years old.
Wow.
It came about from Eastern Parkway, Labor Day. Anybody who's familiar with New York, more so Brooklyn and Caribbean culture, Eastern Parkway, on every day of the week, every day of the month, is traditionally a Hasidic Jewish neighborhood, except for on Labor Day.
Hmm.
Labor Day is the Caribbean Day Festival, West Indian Day Festival, and that whole road is taken up by every country in the Caribbean that needs to be represented. And not only is it just music, the clothes, the attire, the flags, the steel band that's playing on steel pan that's playing, it's the food. You come up from the train station and you walking up, you can smell the jerk smoke in the air. You're kicking over chewed up sugar cane on the floor. There's corn hairs on your shoelaces because everybody's eating fresh corn off the grill. And it's just like those kind of things is what inspired this dish. So for me, that was my ode to Brooklyn. I'm not from Brooklyn, I'm from Long Island, but I spent a lot of time there. And if anybody knows anything, one of the most notable things that you could get from Long Island worldwide is duck. So that's my bridging the gap to that. So it's Long Island duck that we take, and we have a process, 4 different processes that we do on our duck. First, we cure it. Then we smoke it. Then we confit it. And then we take the crispy skins that we get from the confit duck that we sear off. We take that and we make almost like a mixture, and we fry it with the duck skins in it. So super crispy, super moist on the inside. It has a smoky jerk flavor that we smoke with pimento wood. And then we take the breast that we cure in a jerk cure, and we give you half a breast, sear that down, and we have a rice and pea risotto. So this is just a Jamaican plate in a different form of understanding from with a Long Island duck.
I also love that, the first time you mentioned duck on this podcast so far was with respect to Nick's on Broadway. Do you ever think about that dish too when you think about this? Yeah.
100%.
It's cool. That's a cool first full circle moment for you.
Where the dish initially just came with the duck leg, the confit duck leg. And then that's why I say this dish is conceptualized for over 15 years. Initially it just started as, oh, we're going to do confit duck, shred it up. Just do confit duck, maybe make a taco or something. Do a jerk confit duck taco. And then it just rolled and kept rolling and kept rolling and kept rolling into this process that takes 48 hours to make the actual dish. So it's like I have a love affair with risotto in some capacity. When we first opened up, we had 3 different risottos on the menu. They had to urge me to take them off.
No way.
100%. Again, this one chef, he made me love it, hate it when I first learned how to make it, but love it. And I can tell you that story. Chef Kevin Marsland walked in his kitchen. He said, make me something. Anywhere in New England, if you went to Johnson and Wells, naturally, any culinary school, you're just coming out of school, you're not going to know as much as a guy who's been working in kitchens the whole time. So it's just like, all right, you come in, you know everything that you did, make me something. I'm like, all right, cool. Gordon Ramsay was cool at the time. So it's just like, I'm going to make a risotto.
Yeah.
Everybody else can't make it on TV. I can make it. Well, culinary school didn't tell you that there's preference to risotto. Everybody doesn't make the risotto the same way. Just like a lot of people don't know that Italian cuisine is soul food. It's only as good as somebody's grandmother ever made it.
I love that. That's so true. I'm Italian, and that speaks to me.
It's 100% true. You can't argue. So my grandmother makes this way. All right, well, now it comes down to whose grandmother's just better. So it's like, so with that, I went and I made risotto, and man, I mean, it was horrible. Now that I look back, at the time, I thought it was great. I was, man, big-headed guy. I went to this chef. I'm talking, this guy was making $10 million a year on catering and just only doing private parties. So I take the plate, and I'll never forget it. Gave it to him like I was somebody. Looked away on the giveaway, and he looked at me. He laughed. He said, "This looks really good in the trash." Never in my life has anyone told me that my food was bad. So I
Yikes.
was confused. I've never heard these words. The record stopped. I'm like, yeah. All right. He was like, "Are you gonna quit or you gonna go home? What you gonna do?" I'm like, "You just say my food was bad and then call me a quitter? Nah, not gonna happen." Went in the trash, took the plate out, scraped it off, started over. Did it again. Made it perfect to me at that time. Took the plate, slid it to him, right to him. He started laughing and looked at me and said, "You want to do it or you want me to do it?" I'm like, "What?" Took it, threw it back in the garbage. This guy's annoying. I don't get it. So at this point, I'm like, "All right, well, how do you want me to do it?" And he was like, "Man," and this is coming from I played sports. I was a captain of every team I was on. So my mentality is to try to be the best wherever I'm at. And coming into culinary school, I already knew how to cook. So I was there. Any class I was in, I was trying to be the best.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're around people who, never cooked before, you kind of almost might feel like you are. Every man's the man to the man walk in the room.
That's the truth.
I thought I was a man that day. And I asked him, "Well, how do you want me to make it?" And what he said was, "I was waiting for you to ask me that. Bad enough you had to walk sideways to come in through the door because your head was so big. But then you had the audacity to make bad risotto." So from there, I was like, well, I didn't even know I was this cocky guy and cook. I had no idea you even thought of me this way. I was like, well, how would you make it? He shows me how to make it. And he cut the onions so small that it looked like McDonald's onions were cut in half.
Hmm.
And the reason being is because he cuts them small so the onions just melt away into the risotto. And it
Mm-hmm.
creates this meniscus around the top, and the starches start to build, and you actually make a pan sauce with rice in it, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And he made the risotto, and it was the best taste. Again, one of those
Ratatouille moment.
ratatouille moment. And from there till this day, whenever I'm making risotto, I don't even have a ticket machine.
Yeah.
It's pure bliss. So for me, it was just like, how could I make this risotto taste like something familiar to me? And adding coconut, adding a little bit of scotch bonnet, adding some pigeon peas, adding some thyme was a recreation of something that I knew, but in the form of something that I just learned about and I liked. And that dish again, that was 2000 maybe 13.
Yeah.
Came up with that risotto and it made its way on the menu now.
So this dish is like formative part of your upbringing plus formative part of your culinary sort of like coming of age, all on one plate, now available on Sunset Boulevard. That's pretty crazy.
It's wild actually.
That is when you put it like that. Now I want to hear about one more savory dish before I want to hear about one dessert that really caught my eye. But something on your menu was called this lobster spicy reggae Tony, not just rigatoni, reggae Tony.
All right. So again, this is a childhood thing for me. Anybody who's from New York, mainly Brooklyn, if you're Caribbean, you know about a restaurant out there called Footprints.
Hmm.
Footprints is the originator, creator of the Rasta pasta.
Hmm.
I don't know. I haven't seen it too much out here, but on the East Coast, it's a big thing, and they never really got credit for it. I remember as a kid going there to go get this stuff. Parents bringing it out. We getting 5 containers of this pasta for the family, and people just took it and ran with it and don't know where it came from. So the last thing I would do is continue that trend and take the name.
Hmm.
So what I wanted to do is recreate a version of that. In addition to, like, I have a quote where I tell people, the only reason I cook is because I can't rap. This is this is one of those moments where it's like, wow, everybody has this like rigatoni on their menu. It's off menu. And it's all this cool little pasta. All right, cool. Well, you never had the best pasta that came out from a Caribbean restaurant. I'm not gonna steal it, but I'm gonna use it as inspiration. So with that, it's this dish in itself is a combination of Caribbean, kind of like a shot at all these off menu places, in addition to
Like the carbone spicy rigatoni, like that kind of thing?
I don't know any names. I don't know any names. I don't know
He did.
names. I don't
You
know
didn't say it. I said it. But okay, I hear you.
names. But a lot of people are doing their nice little pastas off menu, whatever that is. And I have an affinity for lobster. not growing up, but going to school in New England, you could after school walk down the block and go get a lobster for $4. It wasn't a problem.
Yeah.
So with that, I just wanted to create a dish that was my own, but it was an ode to a place that I really revered as a kid. I loved it, and I respect that place so much because it's still going hard. Shout outs to Footprints. So we took it, make our rigatoni in house, add a little bit of lobster to that. In addition to me having to give my ode to another place, my father's restaurant, we were able to get our hands on some good caviar.
Mm.
So we top that dish off. We do the lobster tail, lobster claws, and we make a curry sauce that we cook down. It's a spicy curry sauce, but there's a little bit of jerk in there to recreate the idea of a rasta pasta. And like I said, we finish it with a dollop of Ossetia caviar. And it's just one of those dishes where I pulled from a lot of places just to create it in my own.
That's cool. So this one's like Rasta pasta meets cornbread and caviar meets the lobster inspiration all in one plate of food. Wow, that's a really cool way to cook, chef. Okay, last one I gotta hear about, and that is the rugelach. Okay, I've never had this for dessert. I've only had this as like a pastry when my wife makes me go somewhere and like I needed something to like sweet to like hold me over. I always get this like at Canner's or something on Fairfax. What are you doing with this thing for dessert?
All right. So again, this is a embarrassing kind of moment. Arugula. Growing up, again, my grandfather, for some reason, they always had it at their house. So I wasn't a big kid who grew up on salad. Didn't know there was arugula salad. Uh, but at the time, my grandfather said, "Pass me arugula." So I thought that's what it was called. So now I'm at a restaurant years later as a kid, and people are like, "Oh, that's the arugula salad." I'm like, they make a salad out of that now? That's weird. Put chocolate in your
Is it-
salad? That's weird, man. Wow.
It's like a panzanella, but dessert.
Yeah, I was just so confused. But then, I had to educate myself on that. But we take that for me was just always something that I always knew would be like, I guess in movies, people's grandparents had cookie jars and things like that.
Hmm.
But nah, it was always just rugula at my grandparents' house. And either like it or not, chocolate one or one with the marzipan. But I just remember not being able to eat as many of those as I would like to because it wasn't that
Hmm.
much and it wasn't for me. So those flavors always stuck out to me. So what we do with that is we'll make a quick bread and roll up our arugula and not serve it. We'll take it, dry it out, and make it crispy, and we'll add it to a couple other breads. So my thing, I never liked bread pudding. I thought it was just the most disgusting thing you could ever do. Serve somebody wet bread. That's wild.
My wife hates it too. She will never order it.
Yeah, nah. I listen. I make people believers with this one. So with that, we take the arugula, we take bagels,
Wow.
we take. It's all for texture purposes and flavor purposes. So you'll get a little zing from, or a little bit of flavor differentiate from the arugula. Then you have the bagel that has different texture. Then you have donuts that have a different texture. Then you also have croissants in there that have a different texture. Add a bit of butteriness to it. Toast in with white chocolate, lemon, and we cook that off with condensed milk.
Hmm.
And then finish it in the oven. Take it out. Always a hand whipped chantilly cream so it falls directly over it. And we finish that with smoked sea salt. And for me, texturally, you can taste each individual texture when you eat the bread pudding.
That's what you want, I think. That is the way to get away from the mushy bread problem that you get with most bread puddings.
We almost use the same process as people do to make a head cheese as a farce meal.
Uh-huh. Oh.
So it's just like we keep everything separate and just mend it together with the egg mixture like we would a fat and just let it sit. And once it sits like that, then we bake it off. So it has its individual pockets of its own type of bread that you get in these different textures, but not soggy.
I'm sorry, I stopped listening. I was too busy making my reservation at Linden. Now, has anybody from back home been over here to try your food at Linden?
Yeah, which is funny. Yeah, actually, last week my father came.
No way. What was that like?
Interesting. It was nerve wracking at first. It was cool because I didn't have to say where things came from.
Hmm.
He just knew. He's like, oh. I like this one. I know where you got this from.
Yeah.
He had the cornbread and he said, finally got it right, huh?
Did he have a favorite one?
For him, his favorite probably, it was a toss up between the duck and the Wagyu pie.
We didn't even talk about the Wagyu pie, but if Chef Harris Sr. likes it, then you know it's good.
Yeah, that dish is the top seller at the restaurant right now. Basically, that dish again, concept behind that was a history lesson. First time I had a meat pie was working with this guy from New Zealand. He was born in New Zealand, but went to school in Britain. And if you know anything about meat pies,
Hmm.
New Zealand has some of the best meat pies in the world. They have competitions based off of it.
Well, I gotta stop you right there. My father-in-law is from Australia, and he will take you to war on that one.
They'll go back and
Yeah.
forth. They'll go back and forth. But that's where I was introduced to it. And he was like, well, this is a British meat pie. But I make it like I'm from New Zealand. I'm like, whatever that means, bro. To me, that's a pot. That's a pot pie. That's pot pie, sir.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's totally different. He showed me how he made it, and I was like, wow, no, there's a lot that goes into this. So I respected it. I was like, wow, these guys are walking around with these masterpieces of food handheld. This is crazy. And it always stuck with me, and I always wanted to figure out a way to put that down. So British meat pie meets Jamaican culture. So know anything about Jamaica, it was ruled by Britain till 1962. They didn't get their independence till 1962. So the whole dish is basically an ode to Jamaica getting its independence and keeping its culture. So it's British rule, which is British meat pie, and the inside is Jamaican culture. And it's topped with sweet plantain chutney on top and finished with a oxtail gravy over the top. So that dish is just a history lesson for me that I love to tell people about. So that's why initially it was called Wagyu 62, but everybody just didn't really grasp it that much. But I love to tell people the story because I'm proud of just being able to share that. And it's just like, that's pretty much what it is. Yeah.
Chef, one thing that strikes me as you speak about your food, as you've sort of spoken about your approach throughout this entire conversation, is you kind of refuse to be boxed into any one culinary tradition. You're not just cooking Caribbean food. You're not just cooking from the food that you had at your father's restaurant. And you're not just cooking French food or, Italian food or anything like that. And I know that you've spoken in the past a little bit about having a desire to challenge the narrative around Black chefs in the culinary industry. Can you tell us a little bit about what that narrative is and what you're doing to challenge it?
I mean, now I feel like we're just doing what we do. Like I enjoy making food, but there was a time where I feel like America had a dirty secret that they just didn't want to share. That the basis of American cuisine it comes from a derivative of
Mm,
slavery. So it's just like when a lot of chefs try, you wouldn't until a few years ago, you wouldn't see
mm,
a chef that would make a soul food get a Michelin star. You wouldn't see a chef that pulled from Caribbean food to get a Michelin star. Instead of even focusing on that aspect of food, like I used to teach cooking classes and I would tell people, I ask them, what's your favorite food? And where's it from? Oh, New Orleans. New Orleans has the best food. Well, I agree with you. That's great food. What kind of dish would you say would be the best? Oh, gumbo. Gumbo. Okay, that's right. You like African food. That's amazing. No, that's American. The word gumbo doesn't even exist in American language.
hmm,
So there's no way that could be possible. And then there was this, which was I'm so appreciative of, where it was a push to really gain access to where our food came from. And they went into the diaspora of Africa and different countries. And it was just like, oh, the credit is being given. But they skipped over when it was talking about soul food. They skipped over that. When a black chef would make it, oh, that's just soul food. But anybody else would make it Southern cuisine.
mhm,
So for me, it was
mhm,
just like if the first thing that would say, like, and this has truly happened to me, culinary school, one of the first classes that we went into was New American Cuisine.
mhm,
And one of my classmates, the first thing that they said is, well, we know Big John's going to make the fried chicken. Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. No worries. And once I saw that, that's honestly back then, I guess, that the first idea of what people thought would come out of your kitchen. It was like, all right, well, nope, I can do this. I can do it better than you, and you. So the whole idea is like, no, you're not going to box me in and just, well, you're this kind of chef and you're that kind of chef. No, I'm just a chef.
Mm-hmm.
Don't base my food off of my appearance because you'll be lost. That's literally it. So it's not like I'm trying to, you know, piggyback off of anything that's going on. It's more so, nah, this is just my story. However it comes out, it comes out. But I'm a storyteller at heart. And if I could put that on the plate, that's what I'm going to do.
Piggybacking off what you just said, kind of like there have been a lot of reforms in the culinary world to sort of rectify the narrative that you were just talking about. I remember like in 2020, the James Beard Awards actually canceled their awards because they were being, accused of, rightfully accused, in my opinion, of basically like doing what you're saying, like not recognizing restaurateurs, chefs, especially black chefs who were putting in the work and talking about things and boxing them in really sort of narrow definitions. And they say they've done a lot of work since then to try to dismantle some of those inequities, as have other institutions within the food industry. Where do you think the industry stands today with respect to breaking down some of those inequities?
I think that's true. I think a lot of work has been done as far as that. Like again, I'm not that involved in industry and awards and things of that nature, but I feel like from the sidelines looking at it, yeah, I think the people who deserve the credit are starting to get the credit.
Hmm.
Like it's not about what you look like or anything like that. It's the work you put in, and if people enjoy your food. And I feel like a lot of restaurants, people's favorite chefs would go to these restaurants that nobody would talk about. No one would ever put them on a ballot to win anything. But the chef who is getting this award goes there 3 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's like I feel like it was a bit of a switch, and people who deserve the credit are getting credit, and I love that. But as far as me, I'm not trying to spearhead anything. I just want to tell my story. That's it.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe you'll get those awards too one day. Hey, we're rooting for you over here at the LA Food Podcast. But we always end on this note, and I think this is a particularly good one for this conversation. We talked a little bit about your dad coming to finally try the food at Linden. But when you look back on your career and your journey so far, what stands out to you? What are you most proud of?
Most proud of. I mean, you hit it on the nose. That was probably it. My father being able to sit down and eat in my restaurant. That that's probably it. That's probably what else you looking for.
Doesn't get any better than that.
That was it. I don't.
That's the only award you need.
Yeah, personally, I mean, I had the most critical person when it comes to food ever come down, sit in the restaurant, and say,
Yeah.
"I'll take another trip back."
And you know that person's going to give it to you straight too.
100%. That person might. Yeah, my father might mess around and open up a restaurant now just because.
Down the street, Linden 2.0.
So I mean, that probably right now today is probably one of the highest achievements that I've got.
That's awesome, Chef. Well, hey, I just want to say thank you on behalf of all of our listeners for coming on and sharing your story. We're so excited. I'm personally excited to get over to Linden. Sure, a bunch of our listeners are too. If people are looking for you or the restaurant online, where can they find you?
You can follow Linden Los Angeles on Instagram, also on the website, and you can follow me, Chef John Harris, Chef Jon Harris on Instagram, and yeah, we're constantly now posting daily. I am. Page is good, but I have a few things in the works. Like I tell a lot of guests that come in, we built the relationship with a lot of our purveyors now. When I was in search of finding and trying to find food, we've had conversations like this, and they come across something that they could only get 8 to 10 of. They know they could send it to me because that's
Mhm.
going to be a special. I'll figure out what I can do with it, be it good or bad. I'm gonna take the risk and try to make something out of it that makes sense. So look forward to that. If you're on Instagram, look forward to posting new specials. and our specials only last probably 8 to 10 servings. So come.
Well, congratulations, Chef. We're so excited for what the future holds for you and your team, and I personally can't wait to get down to Linden. And I'm looking at that Parkway and that Reggaetoni personally, but I'm excited to try all of it.
Come on by, man. I promise. Won't be a disappointment.
I'm sure about that. Well, thanks for joining us.
All right, man. Thank you. Thank you for having the time with me, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the LA Food Podcast. Thanks to our guest, Chef Jonathan Harris, for making the time to speak with us today. Dear listener, if you haven't gone to Linden already, or at a minimum, gone to one of those reservation reseller websites to buy yourself a reservation for the future, what the heck are you doing? Okay? I'll see you there. If you like what you heard today, dear listener, please go to wherever you listen to podcasts, leave us a rating, a review, subscribe. Seriously, all that stuff really helps make our way up the charts on Spotify and on Apple. We'll be back next week with another epic episode, but if you're looking for me in the meantime, you can find me on TikTok, Instagram, Threads, and YouTube at the LA Countdown. That's TheLaCountdown. You can also find us on Instagram at LA Food Pod. That's LA FOOD POD.